Hello, hello. So day 13, moon 1. I'm a little worse for wear today because my partner's 50th birthday was yesterday, but I stayed relatively sober. So day 13 of moon 1, we are still following the Lunar Tao by Den Ming Dao. Okay, so rather different subject matter, but it is kind of a continuation in many ways. So day 10 through 12 has been a look at how people would traditionally invite friends to dinner, so banquets, that kind of thing. So today would actually be a day of eating something a lot more plain and simple, as a kind of seen as a compensation for that frivolity, or if you will. So there was I did read a particular meal is a plain rice soup called congee. So it's a plain rice soup with vegetables, and it's obviously just a much simpler meal. Okay, so the title for day 13 is Warrior Loyalty. So everything up to now has been more about family and then friendship and re-establishing friendship, etc. But this is about warrior loyalty. So whereas the past few days have been like the honorary birthday of the Jade Emperor and etc., this is the celebration of Guan Yu. So Guan Yu was a very famous general, along with I think Liu Bei and I can't remember the other person's name, but they upheld the empire against the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Guan Yu was famous for a specific weapon which is now named after him. I can't remember it probably is in the bit I'm just about to read actually. But the weapon nowadays is actually referred to as the Guan Dao, which is so the word Dao in this sense is referring to a knife. So the word Dao, obviously in the sense of Taoism and the Tao Te Ching, means knowledge. It can also refer to like a book and all that kind of stuff, or the way, you know. But in this sense, Dao is referring to a knife. So when you see like what we in the West tend to call a broadsword as well, is actually not a sword at all to the Chinese. So any kind of metal cutting instrument, if it only has an edge on one side, that's considered a knife, regardless of how big it is. If it has two sharp edges, then that is a sword. If it's like a long sword, if it's down to about this length, it's considered a dagger. Swords and daggers would have more of a thrusting type of, so parry and thrust, whereas anything that is a knife, if it's just bladed on one side, it is more of a cutting and slicing instrument or weapon. Okay, so the Guan Dao is effectively a large, very large knife, one single-sided blade on the end of a pole. It is also referred to as the horse knife. So it would be people who would wield this would have to be, I've got one and they are really heavy if you have a true weighted Guan Dao. Mine's a bit rusty, as is my technique nowadays. But they are very heavy. You use your entire body to move and to cut, and it is effectively a means of, they would use it to get generals off of horses. So you yourself as a general could wield a Guan Dao from a horse, ride through, and it's long enough to, you know, attack people either side of the horse. But even then, when you're off the horse, you can then use it to take other people off their horses by attacking the horse, unfortunately. But okay, so little history of Guan Yu. So he is now a celebrated, considered the warrior god. So he was given an honorary title. So this goes to AD. So Guan Yu lived through 162 to 219 AD. Also called Guan Gong. He lived just before the Three Kingdom period, and he was an enormously strong warrior, skilled on horseback and ferocious with a halberd was the name. Excuse me. Okay, so this is during the Han dynasty. So Han was a huge dynasty, and is obviously Han Yu is the Mandarin effectively. Mandarin is the language of the Han, and we call Han Yu, and is now the common common spoken word, or putonghua, the common word, common speak of China. It is what is as standard taught in all schools, and there is now standardized education, all the stuff that Mao Zedong brought in, along with a lot of other stuff that wasn't so favorable that he did. But okay, so the Han dynasty had fractured first into 6 dynasties and then into 3 states, which were Wu, Shu, and Wei. Okay, during this period of decay, worsened by famine and natural disasters, local rebellions broke out. The greatest of them was the Yellow Turban Rebellion, led by 3 Taoists. Patriotic and righteous Guan Yu swore a chivalrous oath of brotherhood to 2 other men, which were Zhang Fei and Liu Bei, okay, to oppose the rebellion together. So eventually Guan Yu was captured and beheaded. Nevertheless, generations after him revered him and made him a god. He is one of the most popular deities, so he represents effectively like fearlessness, justice, courage, but especially loyalty. Excuse me. Okay, so and then I'll just read this last bit, so I don't want to read the whole thing, obviously. Okay, so a warrior stands in the midst of crisis and risks body and soul to defend and win. A warrior grapples with danger impossible for an ordinary person and emerges with victory. In order to do this, however, a warrior must first have trained away personal weaknesses, cowardice, fear, reluctance, laziness, ignorance, and temptation. This is why everyone can benefit from warrior training. Every person should overcome these vulnerabilities. If we must go to war, let us go to war against our own shortcomings. And if we should strive for victory, let it be victory of shining character. So, yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, to me, that whole concept of like, you used to hear like a, you know, if you ask people if they know how to fight, and said, I don't need to, I'm a pacifist. Well, that doesn't make you a pacifist, that makes you a slave. You know, if you don't know how to fight, if you don't know how to defend yourself, you're not choosing pacifism. You are, you're a slave to pacifism. You have no other option. So there is always a case for, learning some kind of martial art of any description, or boxing. To me, boxing is still a martial art. Ultimately it's just doesn't have that title generally, but yeah, loyalty is obviously the thing that Guan Yu was really revered for, and still is, obviously, but also within the martial arts world, he has that notoriety, of being like an amazing warrior who was the archetype for that particular weapon, called the Guan Dao. And then you get some other ones which are similar, like the Pu Dao, which is similar things. Okay, so I actually picked two stories from, almost picked 3, but I basically just highlighted another one which I'm going to use for a different time. So, but these are both to do with generals. So the first one is, I'm going to read this one first, which is number 69. Okay, so the generals have a saying: rather than make the first move, it is better to wait and see. Rather than advance an inch, it is better to retreat a yard. This is called going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. There is no greater misfortune than underestimating your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that he is evil. Thus you destroy your 3 treasures and become an enemy yourself. When 2 great forces oppose each other, the victory will go to the one that knows how to yield. Yeah. Obviously we're going through a lot of psychological warfare with the people who consider them the powers that be and consider them to have these god complexes, and are trying to sort of maintain control, which is not going to happen obviously. But yeah, this is another thing that is in with a not just when the victory will go to the person who knows how to yield. In training of martial arts, there was a thing of someone asked like a Buddhist, or they asked the Chinese, why do the Westerners not understand like martial arts or Chinese martial arts to the level that the Chinese do. So like to say someone who has trained equal measures to equal level to equal time for the equal length of time over years, why do they not get to the same sort of standard or understanding fighting level as the Chinese do? And they say because they don't know how to lose. So ultimately it's this concept, if you're always trying to win, even in training, even in sparring, even in practice, you're never going to win in the long thing, because you've not learnt, you've never put yourself in that predicament, slightly hungover. So in that predicament, so in many ways in training nowadays, obviously I always kind of, voluntarily or involuntarily ended up in losing, but you learn how to adapt. This is the whole point. So if you are, always in the lead, if you're always winning, if you never lose, you don't learn anything. And one of those things is, learning how to, in boxing, you learn how to slip punches because you've been hit with it so many times. That was that leading left hook that is really difficult to see. Every now and then you slipped under it and you didn't even think about it, you didn't even see it, you just knew it was coming, and then you congratulate yourself for it and go yeah, and then you get hit with something else. So yeah, that's one. And knowing how to yield is obviously another thing, obviously. So belligerently fighting just for the sake of wanting to win, even when you know you're not in the wrong, or you're not in the right, sorry. But yes, okay, so the second one I like a little bit better, so I left it for last. Okay, so this one kind of brings in the concept I like, obviously, when you when you choose to learn any kind of martial art, if you are always treating it like an actual fight, if you're always wanting to win, if you're always like trying to put yourself on this pedestal and to be infallible, which is ridiculous, the ego essentially. Yeah, but this is a little bit more about making everything about play, and it kind of comes down to, again, this psychological warfare that we're going through with our government leaders, etc., worldwide. Is this concept of, obviously, play the game, but at the same time don't lose yourself, don't lose your humor, don't lose your own ascension. Okay, so the best athlete wants his opponent at his best. The best general enters the mind of his enemy. The best businessman serves the communal good. The best leader follows the will of the people. All of them embody the virtue of non-competition. Not that they don't not that they don't love to compete, but they do it in the spirit of play. In this they are like children and in harmony with the Tao. So, yes, yep. Okay, we are almost at the 15-minute mark. That is a nice place to finish there. There's no real tools you can put with that. There's really just kind of like some concepts and guidance, and obviously I would encourage everyone in life to learn how to defend themselves. Learning to fight is therefore true pacifism. It's it is what it is. It's I will leave it there because I think that's kind of said everything, and I need to go get breakfast. I'll see you tomorrow.